Hello everyone, hope you're doing good. Welcome to the online lecture on interpretation of statutes. Today's session is in continuation with the previous session on the topic presumptions in statutory interpretations. These are the 7 major presumptions. Presumptions regarding validity, presumptions as to nature and operation, presumptions regarding jurisdiction, and presumptions against intending injustice. We discussed up till here in the last session. Hope you all are clear. Now let's in today's session we will try and understand what is presumption against inconvenience and absurdity, presumption against impairing obligation, and the last one is presumption against retrospective operation. Let's straight away start. Presumption against what is inconvenient and absurdity. So what is presumed? That any statute and all the statutes that is there, they are presumed to be logical and reasonable in their wordings and in their interpretation. If the wordings is logical and reasonable, then their interpretation would automatically be logical and reasonable. So what is presumed here? That any statute is logical and reasonable in their interpretation, and statutes are not supposed, because statutes are not supposed to be causing any inconvenience or absurdity by their interpretation. Also, because what is there? Why are statutes there in the first place? Statutes is there so because there should be justice for all and no injustice is caused to anyone. So if the interpretation of statutes should always be reasonable and logical enough. We'll understand it through an example. See, a statute is not intended to deprive a person of his liberty. So we cannot frame a statute stating that a person would be deprived of his liberty. If at all it is done, then clear words must be used regarding that. The wordings must be clear as to what are the situations when a person would be deprived of his liberty. So that for example, immigration laws. So no matter what amount of inconvenience is caused to any person because of the strict laws or the strict rules that is there in the immigration laws, that particular laws, that particular statute is not considered as invalid because it is causing inconvenience. So there are some exceptions, but in general, what do we say? Statutes are presumed to be logical enough, to be reasonable enough, because they are not supposed to cause any inconvenience or cause any situation of absurdity. Also, statutes cannot impose criminal liability without proof of guilty intention, because if you will, without any criminal, without any process, following the due process of law, if I impose any criminal liability over any person, then there will be a situation of chaos or situation of absurdity, because I am just randomly choosing anyone and saying that you have committed murder, or 10 people were there when the act of murder was done, and I'm without asking, without questioning, without asking the witnesses, or without monitoring the situation, without proper investigation, I name all the 10 members and I hang all of them to death. So that would lead to a situation of absurdity. So any statute cannot impose criminal liability without proof of guilty intention or without proof of actually doing of him the crime, because if that is done, that would lead to situation of absurdity. Now again, there is an exception to it. Many modern statutes rebut this presumption by imposing strict liability, for example in the situation of dangerous driving. So we all have studied, we all know torts. In torts there is a situation of strict liability where no matter if you are at the wrong side or you also have suffered some loss, but if you are part of some accident, there are certain situation where strict liability is imposed upon the person involved. So strict liability is an exception to this presumption that any statutes cannot be absurd in its interpretation. So strict liability can be held to be an exception to such presumption, because there can be a case where the person involved actually may not be 100% fully responsible for the driving accident or for the accident that has been caused by the dangerous driving of himself only. So but since it is a case of strict liability, the person would be given punishment. Then the situation of absurdity would not be said to be done, and it would be held as valid punishment given to the person. So this is presumption against what is inconvenient and what is absurd, that all the statutes are interpreted in a manner that it should not cause any inconvenience or absurdity in the society. Let us understand this case. This case is regarding this presumption itself. Case is IRC versus R Wolf Fibers Limited. Now the question before the court was regarding definition of the word member under Companies Act. So Companies Act has in its act itself there are lots of definition, and the word member that is defined in the Companies Act, that was under question. So what is the definition under Companies Act of the word member? It states, any person having a share of interest in the capital, income or profits of the company shall be deemed to be a member of a company. So any person who has a share interest in the capital or the income or the profits of the company, they are held to be the member of the company. Now, can the literal construction of this definition include debenture holder, or what that is creditor? So can creditor also be included in the word, also be held as member of any company? So the court held that extending the definition of the member and including the creditors in it would lead to a situation of absurdity, and so the court held that creditors were not to be held as member of the company, and members would only be the person who has share interest in the capital, income or profits, and debenture holder were not considered as member of the company. So this is IRC versus R Wolf Limited. Now there is another case talking about inconvenience. The case is the case name is Marshall versus Ericsson Telephone Company. Marshall versus Ericsson Telephone Company. So the dispute in this case was regarding an adoption order of a child. The adoption order of a child was under the dispute in this case. So what is the order? The order stated that adoption can be made only if the child is continuously in the care and possession of the applicant for at least 3 consecutive months. So the child that is to be adopted by the applicant, that particular child should be in the care of the applicant for 3 consecutive months, for at least 3 consecutive months. It could be more than 3, but the minimum is 3 consecutive months. The child should be in the care of the applicant who wants to adopt the child. Applicant is the person who wants to adopt the child. So the question here was that whether the time spent in school or in care of some friend or relative be construed in the calculation of the 3 months period. So the question that came before the court was the child, if is a school going child, so the time that he spends in school, if the applicant has gone somewhere out and he has given the child in the care of somebody of some of his relative or some of his friends for 2 days, 3 days or a week, whether these period would be calculated in the month of 3 months or whether they would be excluded and then 3 months would be calculated. So the court held that not to construe these time lapses, that is the time that is spent in school or in care of some friend or relative, if they are not construed in the 3 months period, then that would lead to a situation of inconvenience for the applicant and would lead to a situation of inconvenience in general, because then calculating how much time the child has spent in school or how much time the child has spent with the relative would be an uphill task. So the court held that not to construe these time lapses in the period of 3 months would lead to inconvenience. So here the interpretation was done in a manner so that the inconvenience is not caused. So this was presumption against inconvenience and absurdity. Now we move on to the next presumption, that is presumption against impairing obligation. What does it states? It states that A statute does not repeal any other statutes. So any new statutes that is enacted by center or by state does not repeal any previously existing statutes. And any point on which the new statute that leaves a gap or an omission is outside the scope of the statute. So if I have enacted a statute and there are certain points that is not mentioned, that is outside, that is not mentioned, that is omitted in the statute, then the interpretation of that particular area would be outside the scope of this statute. Also, statutes do not alter the existing common law. So if I have some already existing rules regarding, say, banking laws, I have some act already existing for the banking law system in India, but then but the central government frames another rule, another forms of sets of rules in the same field, in the banking laws. So then the new law that has been enacted would not repeal or would not alter the existing common law, that is the pre-existing common law. So the interpretation of the new laws, the new statute that is there, they can be done in two ways. Either first involving the alteration of the common law that is pre-existing, and the other one is not altering the common law. So the next the other one, that is the new statute, would be interpreted in a manner not to alter the already existing common law. So what I have written here is, if a statute is capable of two interpretations, one involving alteration of the common law is the laws that are pre-existing. So if alteration of the common law and the other one is not, that means the other interpretation would not lead to alteration of the common law, the latter interpretation would be preferred. Okay, so this is a presumption against impairing obligation, that is a statute will not repeal any other statutes that is there, because the main intention of any statute is not to repeal any other statutes. Also, if any gap or omission is there in any statute, then that particular gap, that particular omission is outside the scope of the interpretation of that statutes. Also, they do not and the last point regarding this is, they do not the statutes are not supposed to alter the existing common law. Now the last presumption, the seventh presumption, is presumption against retrospective operation. So this is, a statute does not have a retrospective effect to a date earlier than its becoming law. So any statute is not retrospective in nature. This is not an absolute rule, but it is presumed that all the statutes that is there would be applicable, from the date it has been enacted, and they do not have retrospective effect. For the sanity of all the cases, for the sanity of all the judgments that have already been passed, because then it would be an uphill task to change all the previous decisions that have been there in this particular field. So a statute does not have retrospective effect to a date earlier than its becoming law. Maxwell talked about the retrospectivity of the operation. Maxwell, a great jurist, he talked about what is retrospectivity of the operation. He tried and explain it. This is his definition. A statute is retrospective, which either takes away or impairs any right acquired under any law, or creates new obligation, or attaches a new disability as regards to the transaction which stands already past. So a statute is retrospective. When a statute would be retrospective? If it either takes away any of the right which is acquired because of certain laws that is there already existing, or it creates a new disability regarding a transaction, regarding a case, regarding a matter that has already been decided, that had already been taken place before the enactment of this particular statute. So this is retrospectivity of the statute. And what is presumed? That a statute does not have a retrospective effect to a date earlier than its becoming a law. So this is presumption against retrospective operation. there is a case. It will help us understand this presumption better. The case is Maitri Kole versus New India Assurance Company Limited. Maitri Kole versus New India Assurance Company Limited. So what does this case is about? It talks as to whether enhanced compensation to be given to all the pending cases pertaining to Motor Vehicles Act unless it is expressly provided. So there was, let's understand, there is a Motor Vehicles Act, and previously any compensation, previously there was some compensation, and now after the amendment the compensation has been increased. So the question that came before the court, the question that arose before the court was whether the enhanced compensation is to be given to all the pending cases pertaining to this particular act unless it is expressly provided. So it talks about the retrospectivity of the Motor Vehicles Act, whether the Motor Vehicles Act, the rules, the amendment that has been enacted in the Motor Vehicles Act, whether it is of retrospective nature or whether it is of prospective nature. Prospective nature is exact opposite of what is retrospective. Retrospectivity. Prospective is, it is applicable to all the cases. It is applicable to all the cases that came after the enactment of this particular act and not of this particular amendment and not previous to this date. So it was held that new Motor Vehicles Act will not affect the amount of compensation in the pending proceedings. So the court held that the new amount of compensation that has been enacted, that has been given in the amendment after the Motor Vehicles Act, in the Motor Vehicles Act, will not be given to all the pending proceedings that have been there, not only to the judgments that have already been passed, but also to the pending proceedings that is presently ongoing in the courts before the date of this particular amendment. So no retrospective operation in case of Motors Act, and all the statutes of Motor Vehicles Act are held to be prospective in nature. So once the amendment of the compensation, enhancement of the compensation is done, after that amendment, the date on which the amendment was enacted, any case pertaining to Motor Vehicles Act would get the enhanced compensation amount, but to all the pending cases which was admitted in the court before the date of the amendment, and to all the already adjudged rules cases, the previous amount of compensation that was there in the previous would be given. So this is this is the case of Maitri Kole versus New India Assurance Company Limited. With this, we conclude today's session as well as this topic, presumptions in statutory interpretations. So I hope you all are clear, all the major 7 presumptions. If you have any doubt, kindly write it in the comments below, and I'll see to it how to